All right, quick run through of the open source firing systems UI. So best place to start is inventory here. This is where you keep track of all the stuff you have, um, just what type it is, how long it runs. If you have any kind of generic fuse delay, if you don't poke it, for shells, lift delays, and then you have a special one for fuses for burn rate and just nice colors. Some of the special things in here, I crawled and made a big old catalog that you can pull down from. So this has pretty much anything you'd want to find in consumer, the 14G fireworks. Um, just yeah, I figured it'd be handy to be able to do this and have like the videos ready to go because that kind of helps. Fluting. Oh, fluting is 1L. Oops. But yeah, you could check it, import it. I already have this one, so we won't do that. And yeah, for editing it, you could add yours from scratch and just drop in whatever you want. There's quantity tracking, but that's not super useful. The YouTube link really enables a lot of stuff. The number one of these is what I call shot timing. Um, that's kind of where I can go through and crawl the YouTube video and profile it and make and kind of get time markers for each of the shots. And it's pretty tunable. I kind of have found a sweet spot that the default is that picks stuff up pretty well, good enough to time off of. But if you kind of find that you want to do it differently, you can tweak these a little bit. So if here you're like, those are individual shots, I want to count those. This is the threshold ratio, which if 1 is the loudest sound it's heard, anything above 0.7 of that gets counted as a shot. And merge is just how many milliseconds between shots we need to consider them separate. So we're at 500, we'll drop it to 100. So we can reprocess it. And a lot of time it happens pretty fast. So we can see we've broken it into new shots here. And so that's a fun thing. And what you can do with that too is you can customize these. I think I've done it for one of these to, click it and define what color it is. So what's really handy here is when I go into a show and I add my Azure Alert, we can actually see each of the shots in here and the time it's at and little things with the color. So that's handy to be able to sync and just kind of put the nice colors on them. The other one here is for shells, where you can inventory all of the different types. So here we can do each shell in the pack, the number, the colors it has, plus the effects. And this is actually really easy to import. If you go firework. If you go into these, I think they had it. Find yourself a description. They'll normally have these laid out here. So all you really have to do is copy this, go into here, and under your shells thing, just throw that into there and hit that, and it'll just take care of everything. So handy there. So that's pretty much the inventory. So going to the show planner, it's pretty convenient. You do have Pyro Musical. You can add this and the timelines will kind of sync and track. I'll just use 2 receivers here. So again, the nice thing is that if we do have this shot profiling, we can time everything really well. So I really like this one. We'll actually go with the 160s here because they're online. So again, shot timing, and then we have this like, we can tell it does this like these colored fans, so we can actually tell when those happen and time stuff with it. So for example, we could time the finale with Azure Alert right when that's happening. And so here we have our receivers and what they have allocated. I'm going to end up moving Azure Alert down. I'm going to put it on one of the 160s because I have those running. I have way too many receivers. So we'll do that. And let's say we have a rack. We have kind of this rack builder here. Let's say I have a my 4x5 rack, and it is a 4x5 rack, and the tubes are spaced 2.75 inches. It's important for timing because that tells us how far the fuse travels, provided you fuse consistently. Oops, I have to save it. Let's save it. Launch code. So what's nice here is we now can really leverage our shell thing. So I like making lines that are themed color-wise. So I could, search all of my shells that have red components in them and then select that. And then let's just stay with the red shells, select that. More red shells, or I don't know, maybe this red. Oh, we'll do that one, and then we'll do just one more red. But let's say I want a red that maybe has, I don't know, crackle. So see our crackling red, we'll do that. Great. And then I can define what fuse I want to use by clicking through these and then picking my fuse that I want as far as speed goes. So let's do good. Blue fuse is nice. And then lead in would be the distance between the igniter and when the first fuse drops down. So we'll fuse it, and then we can add that as a firework up here by saying rack shells, go to my rack, then pick that, and then assign it to target 2 on that. And this automatically tells us what's used and what isn't. Tells us all the things, and great, we can throw it right there. If we want to clone the rack, we can just literally duplicate it and make another one. Have all the fun there. You can, if you're just going to want to have one shell for all of them, you can just find your favorite one, do it for all of them, and then fuse it accordingly. So there's that part of it. So once you've done your show, you can save it. Let's make sure I'm spreading the love here. 162, 163. So once we're actually in the field and you've done this in the comfort of your home, you can go out and actually, put the receivers out and make sure they have continuity. So right now I have these two receivers right next to me. They're plugged in and you get a regular kind of latency and health update for them. One of them has a bum antenna. I think it's 163, so it's unhappy. But you can see your battery percentage. You can see the requested continuity for the show and what's there. But let's load it here. So what's happening here is I'm going to load the show onto them. And you can see our key is armed. There's an actual dongle thing here. So we'll load it. And what this will do is we'll send the show to the receivers and we can see the lights on the queue things. So I can now take my queues and I can plug them in to each of these. And I'll just do that here. I should have actually had this on 2 because I don't have anything connected here. So I'll connect the queue into there and then we can see I've just plugged one into that. So we see we have continuity there. And then I'll find another thing. And you can also tell our queues connected are incrementing. So when we do have everything plugged in, we'll see a check mark there to show us that, oh, these push ones are impossible. If I stop using them. But once we have everything plugged in, we'll be able to see that that is successfully showing all the things. But right now I'm battling with the spring connectors. Oh, these things are terrible. That's why I've gone with now the plugs. Come on, buddy. Well, I think you get the gist. I'm not going to battle with this any more than I need to. But so once it's all plugged in, then your whole sequence here is you can start your show. So you flip a big switch here, it says ready to go. And if you hit launch, it will sync all the receivers up and run the show, and you'll have a grand old time there. But that's really the high level gist of the UI. If you aren't in loaded mode, so let's say we unload this, another kind of advantage of the YouTube thing is you can play through and it'll actually sync up the YouTube video with the, well, it depends on your internet, but yeah, I need to kind of work on getting that proper synced. But the shot timing is kind of the canonical way to do that. The YouTube thing was kind of just a gimmicky thing I was trying out instead of 3D rendering everything like it seems to be the industry standard. But yeah, you also have manual fire where you can go in. There's a manual fire mode that you need to turn on the switch, but this gives you the ability to just manually fire queues off of any of your things. One of the things is show loadout. So once you've created a show, it will tell you, like, have really nicely printable sheets of, let's say for this receiver, what's supposed to go on every queue. So that's been nice to have. And it also tells you what you need to go grab. So if you do stash stuff, it'll tell you, okay, you need one of these, you need one of these. Handy. So that's a pretty nice little detail that I've kind of enjoyed there. What didn't show or what doesn't show there is the rack layouts. So it'll give you kind of the rundown on the racks and how to fuse them and everything. But yeah, high level, that's pretty much the thing. I'll make a separate video where I'll jump over, do a little jump cut to some hardware. Yep.
And just sneaking a quick demo here. Here's 2 receivers firing 4 sparklers and then 2 pairs of mines simultaneously. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and mines. Works pretty well, and you can tell the timing is pretty tight with those simultaneous mine shots. So works pretty well. Anyway.
All right, so the current hardware rundown, and this is with the most recent version of things. Best place to start is the receiver. This is kind of the recommended way to do the receivers. You will start with, at the very least, one of these boards. This is a V9. They mostly look the same, and they have USB in, the whole signal thing out, and you would, where did you go? If you're working in with the same 3D modeled piece, you'd make yourself a battery, which is going to consist of 2 18650 cells, a battery management system, a NTC thermistor, and some shrink tape, which gives you this, then gives you this. And there's your functional rechargeable battery. So once you get that wired in, you have this nice little module here that has a switch for power, USB in, which gives you the ability to program it, as well as to charge your battery. So you can just plug that into any old USB charger, and there you go, rechargeable. Full these things last, I think I've had one running for about a day. And yeah, so at least 20 hours of runtime. So they're solid little guys. You can throw them, you can drop them, and they'll probably break. So don't do that. So with these, when you turn them on, put a little cue in there. They'll give you some visual cues to start with. So that's your power light if it's on or off. And these guys are indicator lights. If you're charging it here, you'll have a charging light, red for charging, green for volt. And these guys blink in here. So first one here, I have this as white, means that it's getting a message from the dongle, which is over here, and we'll show that in a little bit. Green is a sync light. So if we bring another one in here and we turn this guy on, we're gonna get that, and get that. And eventually these 2 green lights are going to sync up as it talks to the dongle and they figure out their sync. You might notice this one is yellow and this one is green. They also affect battery health. So as it goes, it's green, it's 100%, and then it will gradient kind of transition to yellow and then red to indicate being closer to 0%. So this one is a little lower than this, and you can visually see that the battery is kind of lower. So you can see that from ways away. That's handy. On the cues themselves, these are our bare cue modules here, chainable. Again, these are the plug style ones. The older ones are the push ones where you push it in, which work wonderfully when it's 20 degrees out and you're wearing gloves. So I don't like these as much anymore, which is why I went with these, because when you have your cues, you can just nicely wire them into plugs, and you just have to plug them in. So that's that's handy. I think most other people do that, so it took me a bit. So these have lights with them or built into them. I'm going to use this because it's easier to use. And so when it detects continuity on these, you're going to see a light. So I'll choose here. You should see a blue. So blue means it's plugged in and there's no show loaded here. So what I'm going to do is just zip over to the laptop. So we have a laptop with our dongle, the old clip-on style of dongle. So here I can go in and I got a show with involving these two. So I'll stage it and I'll load it. And so this already shows here. So let's load it.
and then this will show the third indicator light. You're like, what's that one for? This is to show like the state. So blue would mean that it has a show loaded, and that's just where that's at. So now we see we have red marks on these. This corresponds with where a queue is needed on these. So we see in the queues connected, we have 0 out of 3. So what I can do here is I can go through and I can plug each of these in. So right there, plug that in. Oh, look, we're at 1 out of 3. And if we look at our receivers, we have continuity on 6 on 163. Here, 162 needs 2, and they're push styles, so I just really don't want to mess with that right now because I don't want to push those things in. But you could just imagine as we plug those 2 in, we'd see continuity and we'd see those light up. So if we just plug something into anything else when not show loaded, we're going to get blue because that's the color of it being plugged in, but nothing is supposed to be there. So, and just another hardware look, this is the dongle. This clips to the laptop, and so we have like our arming key right here. So blue is not armed, and the brightness is down quite a bit, so we're red for armed. And we can go into settings here. If we find that it's annoyingly bright, we can turn it up or down or all around, so we can kind of dim the lights a little bit. I don't know if this style is one that'll arrive at here or be it forever, but that's what we got. Anyway, back to the hardware. So nice transition. So we have this wired. I'll just use a Talon for these, just because when the other ones go off, they're scary. So you should be able to see this glow when it's going to go off. We're only going to do continuity to these. So I'm going to run this show, and the timing is kind of random. So actually, let me gap the timings to 1 second here. Do that. I'm going to change your timing. 1 second. Save it. Okay. So I'm going to unload it and then load the new version of the show onto them. So that whole flash means that they've unloaded themselves. And here we go. We're going to load a new start. So, yep, we have continuity there. So this is just proof that this will actually fire and do something. So I'm going to hit start on this, which will then go over to this, and then we'll get this thing running. And there's a dog eating food. What? Anyway, we're in the countdown. See, this means that we're counting down to a show start, and then it will go white when we've actually started a show. So 3, 2, 1, and 163 should go off second. So it's going to be 1, 2, and then probably 3. 1, 2, see it go. 3, and then that's our short show. But that's them running. So they work. You can fire actually quite a few at once. So it's pretty much the hardware at a high level. I'm sure I'm missing quite a bit. Like I said, you can chain these together to your heart's content. With the Q module specifically, they'll come empty here. They won't have capacitors. So you could do all 4 if you wanted. Generally speaking, I do like maybe a couple. The reason these capacitors are here is that when you really chain these out and you have like a lot, which again, I don't find myself doing that often in practice. Like you got, 5, 6 plus. It kind of helps to have like, just think of these as like little shock absorbers for the electricity. So all the way out here, they kind of serve as like short-term batteries. Like this has plenty of umph to supply the whole thing, but kind of smooths out a lot of the dips so these little shift register guys don't get angry. But yeah, generally speaking, the intent is that, we start with these boards and build whatever form factor you want around them. Else I got some good places to start, and just build the system out and use it, improve it, and make it more fun. And yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it.